Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Investing Bros. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin price action over the next week today. Are we about to see a much larger crash in Bitcoin, or is the bottom actually in? There's a lot of fear continuing to heat up with several different categories worldwide. First of all, of course, over in the Middle East, there's continual tension being made that's pushing us closer and closer towards World War III. Also here in the United States, a lot of people still concerned about recession scares. We will be getting data over the next week and next couple of weeks that will help either exacerbate those fears or potentially end them. Either way, Bitcoin has a bright future. Just how far down, though, will Bitcoin fall before the bull market does continue? Before we get into the detail, though, you got to smash that like button and hit subscribe, and we've got to roll our intro. All right, everybody, let's just dive right in here. There's a new report coming out of the Pentagon that they are ordering a submarine to the Middle East, telling the aircraft groups to hasten in transit. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of this article. Ultimately, I'm not necessarily the one that's smart enough to break all of that down for you. But what it does show is continual effort to protect what American allies are in the Middle East, that, of course, being Israel against potential invasion from Iran. There's a lot of rumors right now that Iran could attack anywhere between right now and later this week. Now, is this a bluff? Is this just continual potential negotiation tactics trying to play the strong arm, or is there anything legitimate to it? Either way, I want to make sure people understand if this is what is causing you to be afraid of potential crashes in the market. Historically, while we see volatility around these moments of tension, they aren't necessarily the most doom and gloom perspective on the market. So I kind of sit here and say, well, World War III, or the potential of World War III at this point, is still kind of blowing it a little bit out of the water. It's kind of still being a little dramatic. Tension in the Middle East and a war coming is going to bring volatility to Bitcoin. It could make the price dip, especially in combination with some other topics. But is that going to crash Bitcoin to new lows? Does that end the bull market? The answer at this point is no, unless something way out of proportion happens anytime soon. The fear that Bitcoin and crypto should be crashing because of World War III is not necessarily founded in historical data or facts. It's more of a fear tactic that we've been preparing you guys for a while. But that's not the only fear. Right now, there's also a fear continually from last week that potentially the United States could be entering into a recession. Well, as far as that is concerned, there still to this point is no data to back that up. But guess what we do have on Wednesday? We're going to get a great response here, because Wednesday we will see core inflation and inflation rates be coming out. And right now, the perspective, the thought process is they're actually probably going to come in a little bit lower than last month. Core inflation expected to come in at 3.2, even though last month was at 3.3. And inflation rates as a whole are expected to dip by a 0.1%, consensus down to 2.9%. So we actually could see this week be a little bit of a bullish catalyst for Bitcoin if we end up seeing these numbers under consensus, or even just holding tight, stay true. But if these numbers do come out higher, if we do see, 3.1, 3.2, 3.5, if we go up higher, yes, this could bring a massive scare to the markets. But as far as GDP is concerned, GDP will be answered later on this month on the 29th. There's a lot of people really freaking out about a potential recession. And even though we've seen recent changing of the definition in the last couple of years, I still am going to hold fast to GDP is going to be the most commonly used data point to decide, are we in a recession or are we fine? Well, on the 29th, we will get our GDP announcement. And at the moment, even though it's going to probably be lower than the last quarter, the expectation was 2.3 at this point. I've read other articles saying that this actually is a little bit low. I think it's the Atlanta Fed is actually expecting a 2.5. Is that as good as last quarter's 3.1? Not necessarily, but it also is not a recession. A recession is where we spend multiple quarters in 2 quarters in a row below and having negative GDP. At the moment, that's not necessarily going to to quail the markets there or make any problems in the markets. The other thing to remember is the 21st and the 22nd, we will be having a Jackson Hole Symposium. This is where members of the Fed meet and kind of discuss what their long-term policy is going to look like. Are we going to see a rate cut in September? We're going to hear from them probably more about that on the 21st and the 22nd. So even though there's a lot of fears right now in the markets, for the most part, it overwhelmingly is just a bunch of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying we won't enter into a war. I'm not saying we won't see inflation go super high and potential recession scares come. But at the moment, the data points are not necessarily backing up that all of the fear being pumped into the market right now is actual fact. What we do know, though, is if you look at the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index, and let me get over here and take a look at it, it's coming in, if I refresh this morning, because we had 40 a couple days ago, it's coming in at 25. We are squarely back into extreme fear. Yesterday, we were back up to 39, but the market's going up and down and up and down, and all of the fear pumping in with what I just talked about, the war, the recession, it has caused us to come back down into extreme fear. For me, this is extremely bullish because right now Bitcoin price is hovering. Yes, it's below 60,000, but it's sitting at 59,400, and yet we're in extreme fear. Historically, these patterns of extreme fear have matched up. Again, we haven't seen these levels since way back here in December of 2022 when we were hitting a bear market bottom. So to see that we are just as afraid right now at $59,000 as we were back in November of 2022 when we hit $15,000, that shows a lot of confidence for long-term whales. It's just the short-term users who are afraid, and it's something that I'm continuing to say I believe is a massive bullish catalyst. Let's get into the charts, though, and take a look at what's happening. I made a call on Saturday's live show. I told everybody that I did not want to see, and I didn't expect to see the weekend ending closing bullish, even though we would go on to rally up to actually, that's the wrong one right there, daily chart. Even though, during the day of Friday, we'd be back up here towards 63 almost. I told everybody, do not be surprised to see a price drop and a little bit of a gap formed once again this weekend. Sure enough, that's exactly what has happened here after closing on Friday around 60,980. We opened up last night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when the Bitcoin futures opens back up. It opened up down here, actually opened up all the way down at 59,200. We've since closed a little bit of that gap, but we still can get all the way back up towards 61,000 before we actually need to see some sort of reversal coming in. So this is a short-term bullish look that I'm looking at right now. I also told you guys on Saturday, look for a couple different levels of a pullback between the 4-hour and the 1-hour. I did not think that the dip necessarily was over, but we're starting to hit, or we hit earlier this morning, a couple of the targets that we talked about. We talked about a move potentially down towards 57.5, where you're going to see a lot of backup on the hourly and the 4-hour chart. We had a major bullish breaker block. We have a take profit level here from our Lux Algo signals. Now on the hourly chart, we're running back into some short-term resistance. So is this dip necessarily over? Not necessarily, or sorry, it's not sure just yet if we are really going to go to the upside. It's good to see the RSI crossing the 50, a bullish MACD, and a lot of positive movements on our Lux Algo oscillator after a buy signal. But I am a little cautious of that 1-hour smart trail in play. Also a bearish breaker block back up here closer towards 61,000. If we dip down lower, I'm not going to be surprised to see our 4-hour chart maybe even make its way back towards 56,400. That's the smart trail. That's a take profit level here on the 4-hour chart, where even though we're seeing some small positive signs, this is not screaming at me right now on this page from the oscillators that we're yet fully oversold and ready to have a full-fledged correction. And again, with a lot of the fears not getting answers until later this week, I would just be very surprised to see Bitcoin allowed to run up to the right before we at least deal with some of these concerns. Again, We are afraid of recession. We're afraid inflation's out of control. Well, we'll know more answers about that come Wednesday morning. So at least wait until then. As far as the rest of the space, it could be till the end of the week before we find out more about future war tensions in Iran. So anyone who's expecting right now for Bitcoin to just explode and go up into the right and hit new all-time highs by the end of the week, that's probably a little soon. At the earliest, I don't think we would see any new all-time highs until the end of August, after we've seen positive inflation numbers, positive GDP numbers. We hear from Jackson Hole and Jerome Powell saying that they're more than likely looking at a cut in September. Those three things could send Bitcoin to new all-time highs before the end of the month. But we got to wait all the way until the end of the month before we hear any of that. So therefore, it's time to continue to look for the sideways boring action, continue to hodl, and look for every dip opportunity to add to your bags while you still can below $70,000. Because no matter what here in the next couple of months, unless something majorly outside of anything we're perceiving right now starts to happen, Bitcoin's still well into a bull market. As I showed you on the charts, there's still a lot of bullish signs on the longer time frames. I even want to kind of show you another data point we talked about on Saturday, but I want to bring back up, and that's open interest. This has been a long time since we've seen almost no open interest below us. What do I mean by that? We see almost nothing yellow, no high liquidation levels below us. All of that liquidity is sitting above us. But when you have open interest being extremely low, you take out the volatility in the leverage positions and you allow people simply to invest based off of, do they think the price of Bitcoin is overvalued or undervalued right now? And while we're dealing with a lot of economic uncertainty, one thing is for certain: people see the future of Bitcoin being extremely bright, and that is going to cause more buying pressure over the next couple of months than selling pressure. I still believe the Bitcoin bull market is lasting another year. But with that said, don't want to discredit any of these fears. I want to make sure we continue to monitor them and all the information as it comes out so that you can be best prepared for your crypto investing as you can. Right now, though, continue to hodl on because brighter days are ahead. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button and hit subscribe. If you're looking for a good trading platform, check out CoinW in the link down below. They are an amazing platform, some of the best fees, some of the best options you have out there. No KYC, no VPN required. That is what we use to trade here on the channel. You should check it out as well. And guess what? You can earn up to $100 for free just by signing up and getting your trading going. Check CoinW out right now. Guys, I'll see you in the next video. Adios.